I build a lot of stuff. I've been doing this channel for something like 8 years now. I have, I think, over 350 build videos. That's a lot of projects. That's a lot of minis. That's a lot of terrain. So what do I do with it all long term? Welcome back to Blackmagic Craft. So what is a person supposed to do with this much terrain, miniatures, dioramas, and other random game junk long term? The short answer is that I put it on my shelves to use in games and just as display. But in reality, a lot of this stuff ends up getting used maybe once or twice and then just sitting on the shelves for a very long time collecting dust. And I can't just keep adding to the shelves. You know, shelving space is a finite resource and eventually it will run out. This means I have to be selective about what I keep and what I get rid of. Before we jump into how I deal with this situation, I want to tell you about this video sponsor, Into the AM. They've got a wicked Black Friday sale that you're going to want to jump on fast before it's too late. If you're in need of some great fitting, comfortable t-shirts, Into the AM has you covered. They've got awesome graphic print tees as well as plain basics. And they don't just do shirts, they also have sweatpants, hats, hoodies, and other accessories to improve your wardrobe. Their Black Friday sale is their biggest and best sale of the year. So now is the time to head over to their site and take advantage of this killer deal. They've got a site-wide sale that is reducing prices by 30 to 80% off. And if you go to the site using the link in the description, you'll get an additional 10% off. Yes, those two sales stack and combine. Even if you're not looking for some new clothes for yourself, this sale is too good to miss, and you should take advantage of it for the upcoming holiday season. I'm sure you got some friends or some family that would appreciate some cool t-shirts. Act now because the sale will end at the end of November, and if you're buying stuff for loved ones, you want to get it shipped in time for the holidays. Now back to all this stuff and what the hell I do with it. The stuff I end up keeping long term, like inevitably, is the stuff that I either know I'll use regularly in some form of game, or maybe for like photography for the channel, or stuff that just displays really well. Things like my little miniature buildings, I tend to keep. And that's what usually forces other items off of the shelves into deep storage or giveaway, are the little houses. Every time I build one of those, I just want to keep it. They look neat on the shelves, and honestly, you can use them over and over and over again, and the more you have, the better. You can do all sorts of cool city and town layouts, and they're good for all sorts of games. And then there's generic stuff like trees and rocks. Those two are items that can be used over and over and over again, and they're always useful. I tend to never get rid of these unless I make a set of something that is just a better version of something I already have. So if I make nicer spruce trees, I might get rid of the older, crappier looking ones, but I'm always gonna make sure that I have a set of spruce trees, for example, on hand. I also rarely get rid of big sets, things that were a lot of work and go together to make up a full table. Things like my Plague City that I spent months putting together and painting. Now, I don't play 40K that much, but this set was such a big task and it all goes together so cohesively that I can't see myself getting rid of it. And not just because it was a lot of work, but in the rare occasions I want to play a game that uses that sort of thing, I want to have it on hand. I'm not going to spend months building something else to play with or play with a crappy setup because I got rid of the nice stuff that I put a lot of work into making. This is the same for all the terrain that I've made for Idols of Torment, my own game, because that's the game I play the most and the game that I need and want to have the most stuff on hand for, because I'm going to be hosting games, demoing games, going to conventions, all that sort of thing. So the more appropriate terrain I can have for that game, the better. In theory, I want to have several tables worth ready to go at all times. So all of that stuff takes priority in the collection. For little things like tiny bits of decoration and scatter terrain used to dress up dungeons or whatever, they don't take up a lot of space, so I'm able to keep quite a bit of it. What I do is I just group it together and keep it in these black plastic bins from IKEA. Now, black bins is not the best way to do this because you can't see what's in them and you either have to label them or just remember, and it's an easy way for things to get forgotten about. But I like the way it looks on the bottom of the shelves a lot better. It's just a personal preference, but I will admit that it is the worst preference. You definitely are better off using clear bins to store all your little stuff if it doesn't bother you to look at it. Whether you go with clear bins or not, IKEA is a great place to get bulk bins that are all the same size and have interchangeable lids. Dollar stores are also great, but I found that IKEA is the place to go for this sort of stuff. Now, there's some things that will never get used in a game. Things like dioramas. These are the builds that I put the most work into, so they're the ones I'm most reluctant to get rid of. But I don't feel any sort of guilt if they don't get used in a game and are just sitting on a shelf, because that's their designed purpose. They are literally just meant for display and decoration. Having dioramas sit on a shelf for years does not bother me. I love it, and I actually don't know if I've ever gotten rid of one of the dioramas that I've built. Eventually I'll have to, because I will run out of space to store them. When it comes to the stuff that I don't use very often, and I know I should get rid of, I do have a hard time just instantly parting with it. I've gotten a lot better, but a lot of the time I can't just take it from the shelf and get rid of it. So if I'm reluctant, what I'll do is I'll put them in some clear plastic bins. And in this case, clear is an absolute must because I'll store those in the basement. And that makes me feel better that, you know, maybe it's something I'll want to pull out in several months' time for a game or for a photo shoot or for whatever, and I know they're there. Once they've sat there for a certain amount of time and that stack of boxes starts to get too big, I will want to get rid of them. And this is where things get a little bit tricky. I'm in control of deciding to get rid of something. You know, I can get over that fear and just do it. But then what? Like, I'm not gonna throw stuff in the garbage. That would be very silly. And I'm not in a position where I feel good about selling it. For one, the stuff that I'm getting rid of isn't my best stuff. And I don't think that, you know, it should be sold for much. I would feel guilty selling it. And unless someone is locally wanting to buy it, selling it really isn't viable because shipping from within Canada is super expensive and terrain is big. So I end up having to wait for situations to pop up where I'm like, boom, that's it. That's how I get rid of stuff. And that doesn't happen too often, but when it does, I take advantage of it. The first time I did a big purge, I had a whole bunch of stuff sitting on my shelves that I knew I would never use. It was getting old, but I just couldn't bring myself to get rid of it. This was during the height of the pandemic, and a very nice, lovely mom of a little kid, I think he was like 8 or 9, I can't remember exactly, she messaged me. It was his birthday, and he unfortunately couldn't have a birthday party because a bunch of people in the house were sick. And he was rightfully bummed out. You know, you don't want to spend your 9th, 10th, or whatever birthday it is just sitting at home alone. He was a big fan of the channel, and she reached out to me asking if I could record like a video message and send it to him to cheer him up. And I thought, you know, I can do better than that. So I went through and I gathered a ton of stuff. Mostly really iconic builds that were somewhat famous from the early days of the channel. And I went and I dropped it off at their house. Put this big box on the steps, knocked on the door. Mom sent him out to grab it. He looks down, sees this box, doesn't know what it is, opens it and sees all these recognizable builds from my channel. And he's really confused. And then he looks up and he sees me over on the sidewalk waving to him, saying happy birthday and all that good stuff. And needless to say, blew that kid's mind. It was a really wonderful experience. I think it made my day more than it made his, and it made me realize the value in getting rid of things and making sure they have a good home to go to. I'm hoping you're still out there, bud. I hope you're still watching and still into the hobby. And if you're not, well, I hope you pass that stuff on to someone else who will appreciate it. Yeah, and so from this point forward, I've always just waited for good opportunities to arise where I can purge things. Recently, My stack in the basement was starting to, get pretty big, and I was itching to get rid of it. And I was contacted by a brewery called Kilter that's in Winnipeg. They're like a brew house, restaurant, pub. They make their own beer, and they did a 24-hour live stream D&D game challenge for what's it called? Extra Life, raising money for children's hospitals. And they asked if they could borrow some terrain for their games, and I said, no. But I'm not a jerk. I said, how about instead, I just give you all of this stuff. You guys use what you want. Feel free to give it away as prizes, maybe let the DMs who are putting in the work keep some for themselves, whatever, but use this stuff for a good cause. And they took a bunch of it, they ran their game, they hit their goals of funds raised, and I felt good about getting rid of all that stuff. Soon after, I got a comment from a teacher locally who has a D&D club that she runs for her kids, for elementary school kids, and asked if I ever have some stuff, if I would donate it. And as luck would have it, I still had a ton of stuff that I wanted to get rid of, but it wasn't terrain. It was more like game aids, things that I had gathered over the years from reviews and just companies sending them to me and stuff that I've bought. Things like books of dungeon tiles, modules that I had purchased and printed out, standees, tokens, that sort of thing. Stuff that is perfect for young kids and a school club. So I contacted her, gave her that stack of stuff, and those kids are now using it in their regular D&D club, which is really exciting to me and really cool. There are some items that are well made, that I like them, that I just don't think I'll use again, but I also don't want to get rid of them because I think they can be repurposed. A long time ago, I made these underwater ruins, which I really liked. I put a lot of work into the structure. I love the shape and the form of them, but the colors and all the undersea decoration, it kept it very firmly planted in an aquatic adventure sort of theme, which I knew that I would probably never ever use again. But because, like I said, I need lots of stuff for Idols of Torment, I figured, hey, this piece could very easily be converted into terrain for that game in that setting. So I actually took the one piece I made, I broke it apart, removed all the seashells and stuff like that, put it on new bases, added some more Sculptamold and pillars and things that suit that style of terrain, repainted them, and I took that one unusable piece of aquatic adventure terrain and converted it into 2 usable pieces of Idols of Torment terrain. And that's a great way to deal with stuff that's very specific that you might not get more use out of, is to convert it into things that are more generic for generic games. Like if it wasn't for Idols of Torment, those could be converted into just generic ruins for D&D. So I'm still far from an expert at storing and getting rid of stuff, but I am getting a lot better at it. I've gotten over the fear and pain of giving stuff away and learned to enjoy the thrill of giving it to others that will appreciate it and, let it get some life, let it be used. So if you're local and you have a situation where you think you could make good use of stuff, you run a D&D club or something like that, you're doing a fundraiser, reach out to me and I will keep your information, on hand for the next time I do a big purge. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it gave you some ideas for what to do with your stuff that you're not using. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comment section below. Also, put in the comments how you deal with keeping your surplus terrain and miniatures and whatnot. If you want to pick up some tools or supplies to build your own stuff, head over to blackmagiccraft.ca, my brand new website. I have a refreshed essential equipment page where I link to the stuff that I use regularly, and shopping through those links helps fund the production of these videos and these builds. Last, there's one really great way you can help out the channel if you are so inclined, and that is by supporting the channel on Patreon. I'd love to have you as the newest member of the Black Magic Craft Fellowship. That support goes a long way and it's very appreciated. That's it. That's all. I'll see you again next time. Cheers.